to look at the notes I sent?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, do you have any? What did you think?
I think it's awesome that I got all of those parts correct.
Okay.
And then the questions that you were asking me about, like students that have troubles tapping out the words. I don't remember all the questions. I read it this morning, but I didn't know the answers.
Okay, great. So we can we'll start there, and then we'll transition into the things I wanted you to consider. Because what I wanted to do today was actually like plan, and then some of those things that we could talk about like as you plan. So I think you're doing a really great job with the before reading and the during reading, like really setting up the purpose. Like it was clear that the students understood what they were supposed to do, like what reading skill they were supposed to practice, and like what they were supposed to be learning as they read. And then at the end, you were able to check that all of them were able to tell you 2 things about the plan, right? So those things are great. So that's like I think that's the meat of the meat of what you have to be able to do, and you're already doing it. So all of your reading lessons are focused, and the students are practicing these reading skills. So just thinking about, like, how can we push the students more when they're actually doing their reading? So the first question I want to ask you, because I noticed that you were taking notes, what did you notice that the students needed?
That's right.
Or, like, what could the students do and what couldn't they do?
Okay. So all of them were able to do all of the groups that I had doing the pointing to every word could do it, except for Colin.
Okay.
And then my last group was the one I wanted reading with expression, and they all got that.
Okay. I think it should be okay. I don't know. Just keep going.
They could do everything I asked, pretty much.
Okay.
There wasn't
Okay, so then what does that tell you? If they can do everything that you asked, what is it? Does it tell you anything?
It tells me that I think they're ready for the next level.
Okay, great. Okay.
And that's something that I also have been struggling with, because so all of the groups that you've seen me meet with today, besides this very last one, I think are ready for like exclusively B books.
Okay.
And that's what I was trying out, this B book. And then this last group shouldn't be on a level B. Okay. They should be a C, but also I'm going to need help with like the scaffolding, because I don't think that they're totally, I think just about all of my groups are ready to go up a level.
Okay.
And it's just like, I'm not sure if they're totally ready, but these are too easy. Like what I had been doing.
Okay, great. And so one thing I want you to think about is like, how will you know if they're totally ready?
Because they can get the reading skills.
Okay.
And so, so these groups all have the A, reading skills. Like, that's not even a question.
Okay.
And they're starting, and they already have a lot of the B.
Okay. So then, great, what I hear you saying is that you might want to just stretch them to use some of those, to do a C book, because here, if they already have most of the A or B reading skills, like it's coming inherently, so they're not even really practicing them or using them for what they're supposed to be used for. Like they don't have to use the pictures because they already know that says C, right? Or they already know that that's a circle. But in the C books, when the text get a little bit more difficult, they're going to have to really think about what reading strategies do I know and how I'm going to use them to decode these words. And that's where you want them doing, because that's kind of challenges them. Mm-hmm. So that's why I asked you, like, what data did you notice? Because the data that you get, you want to be able to figure out what do I need to teach, and then how would I challenge. Mm-hmm. So you've already figured out I'm going to challenge them by increasing their level. So do you know what you need to teach next?
Well, I know that all of these groups are still unfamiliar with that sight word.
Okay.
Like what and you still need to be worked on. And they did okay with adding the sentence, but not all of them got it.
Okay.
Or added the sentence that made sense.
Okay, so that's for today's lesson. But what about
I'm sorry.
Yesterday's lesson?
Oh, what did they not get?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay. So I want to talk about that. There was that one question. There was a one young man that you were working with who, I can't remember.
Quinn.
I think it was Quinn. He had difficulty with a word. And I think he needed to remember how to read a word or something like that. And then when you told him, he wasn't able to use another strategy to read the word.
Right. So he was stuck on the I see 3 rectangles.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I see 3 stripes. And I said, look at the first letter. What sound
Mm-hmm.
does it make? And I said, so what could it be? And he said, mm.
Mm-hmm. So at that time, so that tells you something. So the first letter didn't work for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't have an arsenal of any other strategies to use to decode that word.
What 3 things in the picture do you see?
Yeah, exactly. So one thing you might want to teach, or one thing that you might want to move forward, is just like telling students, like, when one strategy doesn't work, this is another strategy you can try. And so they need to be able to do that on their own as they're reading those C books without your help.
Yeah, I mean, that had been the strategy we had been working on. Like, Quinn, that has been the strategy the entire school year.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like, we only just started doing when we started this, that's when I switched. Because he had been doing it consistently.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe for Quinn, like, thinking about his issue, and it might be with a lot of students, is like using the multiple strategies. Because one strategy isn't going to get them there.
So he sees the stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So he says stripes. But then I say it starts with an R. He says, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that is him using? Because he did see 3 stripes.
Okay. So he saw what? So then looking at the first letter, well, what else could this be? So just what else could this be? Does that make sense? So he should have known to be able. So that's another strategy. Thinking to yourself, does that make sense?
Okay.
So he should have known that when he saw the word, it started with an R, and he said stripes. He should have known that it couldn't have been stripes because it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So just thinking about using that strategy as well.
So he needs to revisit that.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about so in that lesson he used the beginning letter, he used the picture, but he wasn't able to use the picture, and then thinking, okay, well, does that make sense? Because if he thought to himself, does that make sense, then he would have self-corrected when he saw stripes, because he looked at it like, oh, that doesn't make sense. So thinking about...
So maybe my next teaching point should be, after you read the sentence, I want you to think, does it make sense?
Exactly.
And then read it again?
Reading it again, exactly. Because what you're setting them up for is that, does it make sense? They're going to start using other strategies if the first 2 strategies or the first strategy that they use comes up with something that doesn't make complete sense. So, like, for some stories, it's going to be like, if the picture is a picture of candy and they say chocolate, of course, that's still going to make sense. But there is some instances where their picture cue is not going to make total sense at all. But you want them to be able to understand, oh, this doesn't make sense. Let me try something else. Because then you're going to keep on continuously rolling out these strategies, and they have to look and say, let me try something else when it doesn't work.
Got it.
So that makes sense. So, and is that on here? Let's see.
Yeah, reread. Or begins to self-monitor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that could be something that you're going to work on the next time. So, thinking about, because tomorrow, do you already have a text for tomorrow?
I have books for those levels. I haven't picked out what book I want to use, or I haven't done any planning.
Okay. So yes, we can plan that out later.
Let's see. I'm doing. Well, I guess. Well, no. One of my groups is a level B book. Level B. Okay. So for my first group, I'll do this lesson that we're talking about with them. Or no, my first 2 groups are both B for the morning. Thursdays are my worst. And then I have a D, I have an E, I have an F, I have a C, I have an S. How about the C? Because he's the one who's kind of been stuck.
Okay.
We did that last time. Okay.
Great. So now, just to recap what we talked about. So, how are we challenging this group today? 5.
He's already read this book. Okay. I'm not good enough. Let me just get something from the library.
Okay.
Well, I have the C for that.
Okay, so that's your way to challenge.
Well, you're saying for the other group?
Well, no. Well, just the group that we work on. Because remember, when you take your notes are going to tell you what do I need to teach, and then how can I accelerate. And so you told me before, like from the notes from yesterday, you realized that it was probably too easy, so you're going to move them up, and you're going to teach.
Well, I don't think B's are too easy.
Okay, you don't think B's
for these first groups.
Okay.
But I think B's are too easy for these.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the 2 second groups, the 2
Uh-huh.
last groups, and then you're challenging them by moving them up a text. Okay. And then you're going to teach, I guess, the does it make sense, how to self-monitor?
As the next
Mm-hmm.
one, yeah. Good home. And I really haven't. This one boy, I don't know why he's stuck. Okay, so he could figure out, he could see like the parts of a word in a big word to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
He could solve his new words with his own, on his own.
Mm-hmm.
He can answer the comprehension. Yeah, there's really no, so then what is he missing? I guess it's just the solving new words independently. Like I'm having to coach him through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm having to like put my finger over like half of the word and say like, what is this word? Now let's look at.
Mm-hmm. So having a reminder when he's not with you of what the reading strategies are.
Uh-huh.
And see, and that's one thing that I've noticed is that here at your reading table, if the students aren't working with you and they don't remember the strategies in their head, there isn't anything that they can look at to support them, to tell them what strategies they might be able to use to get it.
I used to have a poster up.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about
Getting another poster up,
and I have something that I could give you. It's a strand. Let me show it to you.